Okay, we are here today again with our series on recruiting. A lot of this is prompted by the NCAA decision to extend eligibility and also by the pending contraction of the draft and contraction of minor league teams and how this affects individual players and the decisions that they make and what they pursue and what they don't. One of the things we stress here, I always go back to an experience I had, gosh, it's about 5 years ago. I was involved in a tryout at a high level independent team. A guy comes up to me and goes, "Why didn't I get drafted? Why didn't I get signed?" And it just hit me, boy, they don't know. They pack up their gear, they go to another tryout without any information about how to improve. How do I become what you're looking for, what you're looking to sign? And so consequently, we stress a lot in here. It is what we offer, but whether you choose us or not, what we want you to do is stop making mistakes, start making good, well-informed decisions before you do what you got to do to get from where you're at to where you want to be. It's a little bit like dating, right? I'm going to make this up and be funny, but if I wanted to date Jennifer Lopez, I found out she was going to be in a bar and she loved the color blue, you can better believe I'd be wearing blue. I'd paint my face blue, so that's what, and I find a lot of players at all levels don't know. And that's what we're here for. And so occasionally we're going to, in addition to administrative people like scouts and coaches, we're going to talk to players who've been involved in situations where doing the right thing enabled them to be successful. So today we're with my friend Harrison White. Harrison, well, we'll get into the story in a minute about how we met and worked together. The story was successful. He did get drafted. But let's start with tell us about yourself. Tell us about your experience. I know you were a lunatic about baseball from the time you were a kid, right?
Absolutely.
What did you tell me? This was always your dream, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was my dream from the time I was, literally before I could walk. My dad sat me down in a diaper on the floor of our garage. He hung a tennis ball from a rope and handed me a little plastic red bat, and I would just sit there and whack away at the tennis ball for, however long I wanted to. So I always tell people since before I could walk, baseball was a part of my life. And then, just from then on, I had always really had a passion for the game. When I was about 10 years old, I remember writing on a card. One of my coaches had us write on a card, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" And my answer was a professional baseball player. And so the fact that I was
there for 1 second because
yeah.
I'm going to sound like I'm Pollyanna-ish, but some of the people that interacted with Harrison's experience with us working with him were trainers and nutritionists, and he stood out. I want to emphasize this. He stood out because of his passion, because of his work ethic. We see a lot of players, but I want to emphasize for you guys out there, just because you're not a stud where you're at, what's going to get there oftentimes is not your athletic ability. It is the type of passion that this young man had. So go ahead. So what happened in high school and all that stuff?
Well, I appreciate that. Moving forward into high school, I think it was in high school, and I really started to realize that I was separating myself from the field. And I'm not sure if that was at that time a product of being in a high school where the competition in that league wasn't as good, or if it was actually, the fact that I was separating myself from the herd. And it ended up being the latter. And so my junior year in high school, I went to a ton of college recruiting camps. And at one of those camps, a scout came up to my parents in the middle of the camp. They, ended up staying and watching quite a bit of the camp. And so he came up to them and said, "Hey, is that your son?" And they said, "Yes." And he said, he's not draft ready yet, but he's got the tools to get there. He can hit, he can throw, he can catch, he can run. And he's just got to develop those tools over the next few years. And then he's got a good shot at playing professionally. And so, when I learned that,
Did you tell
that
them?
really signified.
Did you tell
Sorry.
them after they told you that? Did you
Yeah. Oh,
tie
yeah.
a string to the car and you?
Yeah. But in hearing that from, someone that's in professional baseball and not just, a high school coach saying, hey, you're really good, or, a college coach saying, hey, you're really good, trying to butter me up and get them to come to their school. This guy was a professional scout, and he's saying this stuff candidly to my parents. And so that really signified to me that this was the real deal, and it wasn't just the product of being in a lower tier high school league. So I did end up going to a Division I college and playing all 4 years there. And during that time, I realized that if I did want to, realize that dream of mine of becoming a professional player, I was going to have to continue to stand out in a league
I
that was
interrupt you one thing, because it is something that we've talked about. You had several schools interested in you, correct?
in high school. You're talking about.
You had several colleges that were interested.
Yep. Yep.
But
I think from the beginning of my recruiting process until I actually committed, I had somewhere between 60 and 70 schools reach out to me for baseball.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now
and they were, all kinds of schools, D1, D2, D3, all the way, up and down the ladder.
And I know, again, we won't mention names, but too many people place too much emphasis on baseball. And I want to, again, that's why your experience is so important relative to this, because you made a decision not just based on baseball, but the education you were going to get. You got into an Ivy, you wanted to get into medicine eventually, and you made a decision based on the fact that you were offered a chance to play at an Ivy League school.
I can't tell you how many coaches got on the phone with me and said, the fact that your GPA is where it is a main reason why we're calling you, because we know that you can succeed at this school. If coaches think that you're a good baseball player, but they don't think you can succeed at their school, they will not call you. And so the academic part is just as important, if not more so, than the athletic part, because they can develop an athlete. They can't develop a student. That's not their job. Their job is to develop an athlete. So if you are already a developed student and you're showing success in the classroom, that makes their job a lot easier as, both recruiters and as coaches.
I will tell you, I know I've told you this story. I had a young man who, to this day, he will fall. He could probably be 50 pounds overweight, and he'll still and not work out for 3 years, and he'll fall out of bed and throw 92.
Wow.
Just a freak. And he had a ton of offers, had a full scholarship, but he went to Budweiser University and failed. He ended up with a grade point average of 0.
Wow.
That was the class, and this is a kid with had a pro arm. And it took me 30 schools. I call literally 30 schools, despite his talent, 30 schools before I found somebody that would give him an opportunity. So you can't overstate that fact.
Not at all.
They're not going to invest in something if you're not going to be there. I talked to that coach. He was beside himself. A kid that he expected to be a major contributor to his program was down the road.
Yeah.
So then what happened in college?
Well, then in college, like I said, I knew that I had to continue to separate myself from the field if I wanted to play at the next level, and I did. And that was considerably harder than it was in high school, needless to say, at a Division I school. But like you said, I continued to work at it. I had that goal in mind from the time that I walked in. And, the number of YouTube videos that I watched on professional hitters is definitely in the thousands, maybe in the tens of thousands. And so, I'd come home from practice every day and watch a couple of clips of Andre Ethier or Jock Peterson or Miguel Cabrera and just see kind of what the similarities were between their swings and compare that to video of myself hitting in the cage or in games or whatever it was, and just try to make small improvements every day, every week. And obviously it's not a linear progression. You don't just get better. Sometimes you get better and then you get worse, and then you get a little bit better and a little bit worse. And so it was difficult to stick with that, but knowing down the road that I wanted to play at the next level, that was what I committed to. And so that's what I did.
And I want to interrupt you there for a couple of reasons, because I want to point out a couple things that you said that are of paramount importance. I tell people that, and I make a living at this, and I want to make a good living, but I also want to do the right thing by the clients. And you and I have talked about this multiple times. Is your passion, you're delving into those videos, your constant, really almost fanaticism about getting better is, there's a benefit to that.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't mean to demean other people, but baseball is not for everybody. It's so difficult. It's so incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
That it really isn't. It's just not. It's just too tough. Mentally, physically, everything else. Now, you and I met together very accidental.
Very accidental.
Yeah, and without getting into the details, it was kind of serendipitous because you were getting instructed to do something which wasn't compatible with what you were seeing was going to fulfill your own ambitions.
Correct.
And I'm going to let you tell that story, but what I want to point out here, we're not going to we're not going to name names, but the other thing is, I don't know what their intention was. I know that certainly they wanted to win ball games, and you were doing that for them. And but you weren't doing what was going to fulfill your terms after your college career.
Right.
Okay. So I want you to, can you tell, first off, tell us in an administrative management, what did you do to seek professional opportunities within the environment you were already in? And secondarily, what was the conflict in your game between what you saw was necessary and what you were getting instructions to do at the college level?
Right. Well, I'm 5'10", 170 pounds. And, that's not a big guy for a baseball field. Not small by any means, but definitely not a David Ortiz, definitely not a Miguel Cabrera, not a Cody Bellinger. That's just not the kind of player that I am. It's not the kind of player I've ever been. It took me until I was, 12 years old to hit my first actual home run. So I've never been a big power guy. I have decent pop for my size, but I'm not by any means a power guy by the game of baseball. And so I think what happened when I was at school was that the coaches wanted me to be more of a power guy than I was. They wanted to stick me in the 4, 5, 6 hole in the lineup and have me produce and have me, hit gaps and hit homers. And that just wasn't my game. It never had been. And in trying to accomplish that for them, I think it actually hurt me as a player. And in reflecting on that, I realized that, at the next level, that's not going to be who I am. That's not going to be the kind of player I am. I'm going to be surrounded by guys. And I literally roomed with a guy that was 6'7" and 240 pounds. And that's obviously not me. And so his role on our team was to hit home runs and to hit doubles. And, 6'7", 240, that should be your role in baseball. But that wasn't my role. And in trying to make it my role, it hurt my game. I tried to, adopt more of the launch angle swing, tried to focus more on exit velocity and things like that. And it just didn't work for me.
Okay,
and so
what we're saying is we're not condemning that philosophy.
No, I don't think we are. I think
Especially,
that can be a useful philosophy for a lot of players. I just don't think it was for me.
It wasn't for you, and it was going to, and here's where we run into real issues. People don't realize that you got to make yourself into the best player you can be, and then you've got to fit a role.
Right.
I worked with a guy one time, again without mentioning names, and I played with him. I went, Jesus, I can't understand how this guy is literally not in the big leagues. He had been an independent ball, high indie ball. He was an affiliate player and phenomenal athlete. And you're just not in the right time at the right place. So you have to
Right.
be the best of who you are.
Right. And I think you have to be honest with yourself too. There was quite a few years there where I wasn't honest with myself. I wanted to be a home run hitter. I wanted to be that power guy, and I'm just not. And so you have to be honest with yourself as a player when you're analyzing what role you fill. You've got to reflect on who you are, what your role is in that particular team, what your role is within the sport, your size, your strength, your speed, all that stuff plays into your identity as a player and who you are as a player. And if you can accurately analyze that early and play to that and stick to that role and strengthen your strengths in that role, that's going to make you a much better player overall than trying to be a player that you're not.
Phenomenal way of verbalizing it, strengthen your strength. Now, I actually have a tape of the two of us working out with another professional.
I met Harrison at his school. I did an evaluation at the cage at his college. And I noticed some things that are not consistent with the next level he wants to go to. Now, I want to affirm that this is a very good college hitter already. Led the nation for about 3 weeks when you were a sophomore, right?
Yep.
And also led his team in home runs this last year, right?
Yep.
But we noticed some things that are not going to cut it at the next level. Not only is he not going to be able to compete, but very simply, I felt without those things, he's not going to get drafted, to be honest with you. At his size, they're not seeing home runs. They're going to see him, the product that he's going to represent is going to be a guy who gets on first base. They're going to look for him to draw walks. They're going to look for him for high pitch counts, all that kind of stuff. And we'll up his speed a little bit and get him on second. What I've told him is think about second base. Don't think of yourself as a singles hitter, think second base. Not doubles, but think second base. And I brought my good friend Louis Lopez. Louis is a 20-year pro. We're close friends, not just outside of baseball, but also we think a lot alike on hitting mechanics. So Lou's going to be another set of eyes, and we're going to evaluate him and give him some drills to do to make those corrections before he goes into the draft. What I see is a couple major things. Okay, he opens up his hip first, and that pulls his shoulders and everything. What I noticed when I looked at his stats was strikes out a lot. Way too much for his hand-eye coordination. And when I asked him, I knew from his swing, everything's on the outer third of the plate. Just makes sense. That axis is going this way, so he can't get that ball deep and go oppo. He's seeing that ball out here. Okay, and so consequently, he does not get a read where that even crosses the plate. The second thing you're going to see is barrel up. He's not getting in a good launch position with the head, and he's not inside the ball with the knob. Okay, he's not really driving to the ball. Okay. And he's pulling his head off. So what you're going to see basically is his swing pulls out like a pull swing. And the type of product that he's going to market himself, that's not going to cut it at the next level. He's going to drop, he's going to hit about 180. Because they're going to figure out real quickly, first off, everybody throws over 90. And second of all, they're going to use the black. Right? So and even now in college, he's not covering that outer third of the plate. Okay? And it's real simple. Mechanically, he can't. He opens up his hips, and then his shoulders and his head follow. So he's out here on this pitch rather than being here. Okay, so what you're going to see is basically 3 or 4 things. Is it starts with that, and what does he happen if the hips are going? Then he has no power over here. So he's got that hip has got to stay closed. He's got to get the knob of the bat driving first, and you're also going to see. So you're going to see hip, shoulders, head. Everything's going this way, and so is the swing. The swing is going to be here. He's got a little bit of loop, again, that's not going to cut it at the next level with the extra MPH. Okay? All right, so I know you agree with me. Yeah. Okay, so what I want you to do is let's get him on a bucket first, so we take that rotation away and make him square. Then let's do, and I mean that he stayed no finish here. He locks in square on in, middle, out. Get him to do bottom hand, top hand, and just okay, and then get a straight push down, square, push straight, okay, and everything on the tee, and then I'll do some flips with him, okay.
Right here. Concentrate on pulling your hands in. You can do single arm or two hands. Let's do single arm.
When I met you and I said, let me take a look at your swing, and I looked at your stats, and I just very briefly, we'll cover this. I looked at your stats,
Yep.
and I said, geez, for a kid that led the nation in hitting,
Yep.
you strike out way too much. And how many swings did you take? Two. You took
Yeah,
two.
I think it was two.
And I said, you don't hit the outside third of the plate.
Yeah.
You get to the next level, and they're going to pound that.
Yeah.
That's, you need to use the whole field and all that kind of stuff. So that's the specific change. And also we worked on and you're a great athlete anyway. I want to add that one of the reasons they had you swing for power is for your size, you're very strong. I mean, I've seen you
Thank you.
hit. Okay, so but the running also. I remember you said to me, I'm not fast. I said, I don't want to swear on tape, but I said, BS. I said, you just have never been taught. You think you're not fast. So
Right.
we fixed that. We reduced your 60 time enormously, and we got you to start covering the plate. Now, what happened? You took a little bit of a hit making the adjustment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened about mid-season? You just took off with this, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So initially when we started working together, it was a big change for me because I had, 3 years of training under my belt of trying to do the launch angle, exit velocity stuff. And undoing those 3 years of training took work and it took time. And that was unfortunately reflected in, the first half of my senior season. My average was below 300. It wasn't far below. It was like 270 or something like that. So not bad by any means, but just not to the level that I knew I was capable of. And so once I started getting it, once it started clicking, and once it, physically took effect, I took off. I hit like 345 in the last half of the season. I was hitting doubles, stealing bases with the speed work that we were doing. And so, there was a little bit of a hiccup early in the season. But as soon as it clicked, I really did just take off, and I was hitting line drives.
I give you an enormous amount of. See, this goes back. I talk about this all the time. Most kids in your position would have looked at a new guy coming into, to help out, and he would have gone, "Oh, the hell with you! I'm the guy. I'm the man." But it's that desire for constant improvement that opened the door for you to do this. Now, what else happened? We went through a process of, to be blunt, of getting you on the radar. The first thing we did, people here will become familiar because he's a partner, but I had Dave Scrivens from the Red Sox come and watch you. You remember that event, I'm sure.
Yep.
Remember Alberto came. And
Yep.
I'm going to interrupt because you may not know this. Do you remember what you did that day? I think you were playing Brown. You remember what you did?
I think I remember hitting a double that day, didn't I?
Yes, you did, but Dave wasn't around for the double. This
Got
is
it.
very important because people don't realize this. Dave was around for the first two at bat, and you had 2 walks. And people don't realize this. What impressed him was your approach.
Yeah.
Your ability to adjust. You were selective. It was the pitches you didn't swing at. He had a prior appointment, so he had to leave, but he was impressed not with the double. He didn't see the double. He was impressed with your approach, and these are the things that people don't understand at that level.
Got it.
is that he was impressed with your approach. So we started networking with him and with some other people. And I do want to talk about that process just for a second, because it shows how you need to approach this, not just with baseball, but with your personal goals in mind. I said to you that we had a couple contacts with alternative independent leagues. Remember this?
Yep.
And I said, if you don't get drafted, I can put you in a good indie league where a high ratio of players are taken. And what did you tell me?
Well, my thought process at that point was, here I am, I'm a senior in college, and I've got basically two choices. I can either try to continue to play baseball and go into one of those, independent leagues if I don't get drafted. Or I can pursue medicine right off the bat once I graduate college and, say, great, baseball was fun, I had a good run at it, and now it's over. So those are my two choices. And I actually was leaning toward medicine at first. And it took a lot of reflection and a lot of thinking about that choice and a lot of thinking about, well down the road when I'm 60, 70 years old, am I going to be really comfortable with the choice that I made to stop playing baseball potentially before I had to? And I thought about that for days and days and weeks on end. And at the end of that time, I realized that, if I spend a year, 2 years, 3 years playing baseball, even if it's independent ball, that's not gonna hurt me when I'm 65, 70 years old. If I retire at 62 instead of 59, or if I retire at 70 instead of 67, I'm not going to care about that. But I am going to care about the experience that I had playing independent ball, or, as it turned out, playing professional baseball with an actual affiliated club. That experience has been the highlight of my life so far, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. And so the fact that took 2 years away from my medical training, even now, I'm 25 years old, and now I don't care. I don't care that I spent those 2 years playing, because it was such a great experience for me. It was what I wanted from the time I was literally a baby, and I got to realize that dream. And so I actually think, and this is something that I've talked about in my medical school application. So I think that time as a baseball player in a professional setting actually helped me. It helped me mature. It helped me, build teamwork skills, helped me become a better leader. And so I think, that decision I would make 100 times over.